Jai Anilo Premadano Paramakacho Prabhu, Radha Vinod Prabhu, Rasikandra Prabhu, and any of the devotees actually. These are the ones who actually behind the scenes doing a lot of work. Of course, there are many others also doing that. I don't want to miss out anybody. At the same time, at least a few I would like to point you out to any of the disciples in Dallas. And while I'm saying that, I'd like to also say to all the disciples in Dallas that,
take this thing first or something. Well, a few things. This is a Vyasa Puja, so we're allowed to say things that, like His Divine Grace, Tamal Krishna Goswami, which of course he is, His Divine Grace. But we're allowed to say that. And I really was so much impressed by one disciple who spoke in Mayapur, Chinese girl. I'll never forget her speech. That I know there are more disciples like her out there. And of course it occurred to me that her feelings were exactly like our feelings were when Srila Prabhupada left. And I thought, this is wonderful. This is, the beauty of the family that we belong to. And so I would like to see, I've spoken in Mayapur, of course that was a memorial, and in New York. And, so many times you can just go on telling the same stories over and over again and get away with it. But I'd like to hear more from my nephews and nieces and godbrothers and godsisters who haven't had the time to speak. I'll just say, as far as spiritual master goes, Nityananda Prabhu said, we'll hear people tell about their relationship with Goswami Maharaj, and at least for a part of our relationship, the first half it was in the mode of chivalry. We were friendly, but I was too proud and egoistic to appreciate his wonderful qualities. But cell phones, please, should be turned on. The advantage here very much is to the disciple. At least I feel that way, and I know a number of my godbrothers. Goswami Maharaj was talking this morning about the disciple's duty to seek out service from the spiritual master. If it's not given, automatically one should seek it out because it's the source of your salvation. And for many of us, being spiritual masters after Srila Prabhupada is almost effrontery. It's a hard service to do when you're not really qualified at all, but someone has to do. But the disciples, it's to their advantage to have someone who will be concerned about their lives, which Goswami Maharaj is concerned about your lives, and someone who will be there that you can worship and touch. So it's very important in every way to have a spiritual master. A dog without a master is a street dog, and a disciple without a spiritual master is a street dog disciple. So you're all very, very fortunate to have the ripened mango for your spiritual master. And I just want you to know that he was, Prabhupada in his 1936 Vyasa Puja offering, he said, of course that was in reference to Bhaktivedanta, that we're not worshipping anyone's particular spiritual master today, but we're worshipping the Acharya Dev. And well, in a very real way, Goswami Maharaj was the spiritual master of many devotees throughout the movement, not just his direct disciples. And I've seen that again and again over the past so many months. People, my friends who, one devotee in Long Island told me that he was shaken so much for more than 2 weeks, just stunned, because Goswami Maharaj took him as his spiritual master. So it's very important to have a spiritual master, and you're all fortunate to have Goswami Maharaj as a spiritual master, and I'm also fortunate to have him as a spiritual master, brother, guide. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's Golden Street Swami Maharaj ki.
Make it 6 minutes.
Yes, another 6 minutes, perfect. Okay. I was hoping Mother Rasagya would have arrived by now. She hasn't apparently. So we'll take the mic across to Srila Gurudev's mother, because she is with us today, so that she may say a few words. Whatever you'd like to say. We can just have this mic across.
I was not prepared to speak, and I would like to thank everybody here for being here and for your wonderful welcome and remembrance of my son. Please forgive me if I can't say any more. Thank you.
Appreciate your being with us, your being here with us. I know that it's not been easy for you to lead this trip also, but we really appreciate your coming here and spending time with us in Dallas. And of course, we look forward daily to the day when you'll join us in our community and never leave us again, to stay with us all the time. Please give her a big hand again. Is Guru Prasad Maharaj here now? I saw him and I think he walked out as well. He's outside. Is Yudhishthira Prabhu? Can you see if Guru Prasad Maharaj is outside? He might. He's not. Okay. All right. I'll now ask His Grace Keshava Bhakti Prabhu to come and speak. Jai Keshava Bhakti Prabhu ki jai.
Those of you who know me know that this is mission impossible. I don't mean this, I mean 6 minutes. Impossible, but I'll try. with the permission of everyone present, and Srila Prabhupada, I will speak directly to Goswami Maharaj. Goswami Maharaj, that day that you departed after, and the next day, and for some time after, I was in such an emotional state that I could not really properly express my appreciation for your association in the way that I wanted to. I wanted to express to everyone present how I felt about you and what a great person you really were, you really are. I didn't realize actually how much I loved you. Perhaps it's not just me. Perhaps it's difficult to realize how much you love a person until they leave or are not with you. And this may be why service and separation is described to be the highest expression of love. But I still, from time to time, become overwhelmed with emotion, especially when I come to a place where we were together a lot, like when I came to the UK, where we spent probably more time together over the last 3 years than maybe anyone else spent with you during that time in those places, Cambridge and Oxford. But I wanted to remember with you, the first time I saw you, it was Chicago. I was traveling on a Sankirtan party with Vyasa and Kriti Karma. And we were on our way through back to the west coast from kind of like the northeastern part of the States. And as soon as I saw you, you walked through the door having come from New York. I think it was maybe your second stop after taking sannyas and coming from India, or at least the second stop in America after coming back from India as a sannyasi. And I remember the first time we looked at each other, there was something special, definitely. I felt it. We didn't talk about it at the time. We talked about it later, if you remember. And we didn't really get to know each other at that time because we were, like I say, passing through. So anyway, I went back to the West Coast when I was in San Francisco, where we both joined. And a little time went by. I don't remember exactly how much time. It wasn't so long. And you had reconnected with Vishnu John, and you had brought the bus party to San Francisco. And I was by that time doing books in the airport with Vyasa and others. And we would, at the weekends, sometimes we would take a Harinam party out, or Jayananda would take us out on Harinam, or we would go on a festival or something. And this one weekend, you were there with the bus with your boys, and your party was just beginning. And you were trying to develop some book distribution, but it was just the beginning. And I think your boys were just doing magazines, and not very many magazines. They were just beginning, but mainly you were doing festival programs. And we went out to one of your festival programs that weekend. And now that I look back at it, I think that you actually marked me right from the very beginning, because I remember watching you, go from person to person, and how wonderfully attractive you were, to everybody that met you. you had this special potency to awaken their desire to find out more about Krishna consciousness. And I was very attracted to that. And again, I think you noted that. And about halfway through the festival or sometime, maybe it was, I don't remember exactly when it was, but you kind of put your arm around me and we walked. I remember we walked through this grassy place in between where the festival was set up and the bus, and walking over to the bus. And the first thing you showed me, I couldn't figure this out quite at the time, but now that I look back at it, the first thing you showed me was the account book. Right. So then somehow you got it out of me that I had, in university level, I was, educated about those kinds of things. I was kind of keeping that a secret for most people because I didn't want to get that kind of engagement. I liked what I was doing. But anyway, you just were so expert at, finding out about things. Isn't it? You're so expert at finding out, where the person was really at. So then later on, then that was it. And then I went back and started distributing it at the airport. And then, I don't remember how long after it was that, just a few minutes after that, I told you it was impossible. Anyway, 10 minutes at least. Then after that, we were going from airport to airport whenever the servicemen got their paychecks and went to the airports, because that was like a very lucrative time for distributing books. So I was in San Diego, and you came there with Krishna and your party, and because of this, like Maharaj was mentioning, this chivalrous spirit, this sweet but hot, competitive spirit, you challenged me, because at that time I was kind of competing with Arati for the top scores on the Sankirtan newsletter. That wasn't until they made it 6 days a week. When it was only 2 days out of the best 2 days out of the week, and I was up toward the top. Anyway, so you challenged me that, you and my whole party are going to compete. And I said, that's not fair. And you said, oh yes, because I've never seen your scores, and I want our boys to get fired up, and this is the way we're going to do it. I said, okay. But still, your competitive spirit was so strong that you and Krishna John had me over that evening to the bus for a little snack. Now, to this day, I don't know whether or not you spiked the food or whatever you did. But whatever it was you fed me, it tasted real good. But I couldn't sleep the whole night, and I had some symptoms from whatever it was that you fed me. And I was so hyped up that I couldn't go out. You said, that's it. I went by the That was the beginning of our competitive history together. Anyway, then I went on to join Arati Maharaj in Chicago and distribute books at the airport. And after some time, the old body began to wear down a little bit, and I understood that I couldn't do that so efficiently. And we met again, and then, we decided together that I would join you in your Radha-Damodar party. And so I did that. And that was in 1975 Mayapur Festival when you decided that. Now that was a very difficult decision for you because Vishnu John was very, very adamant that there should be no householders on this Radha-Damodar party. It's all saffron, right? Sannyasis and brahmacharis, only grahastas to the back of the bus. I think they could even get on the bus. Right? But due to your expert diplomatic talents and skills, you were able to convince Krishna John to let this fallen wretch of a householder come onto your party. And then it became revealed how intelligent you were, because you had noted it all from the very beginning and remembered, and you decided that I was going to help you to manage the party. So then I got trained up to do the home office, build buses, do all that. So now it comes to the point where you begin to train. Now, your training is not ordinary. I thought I was pretty good at, figuring out the accounts. So every month, every month, at the end of the month, you would call me, and we would have this incredible conversation in which you would ask me the one question for the one figure that I didn't have. And it was the same every month, and I had believe me, I knew a little bit what I was doing. I was trained by him, and I knew the figures. I had it looked at from every angle. He would always ask the one figure that I didn't have. And then when I didn't have it, he would yell at me. And even to the point, sometimes I would even come to the point of tears. I just wanted to get that figure. So then, the month before I actually got it right, when you were in the process of, yelling at me, like anything, I had this wonderful experience. I began to enjoy this chastisement. And you noted it, and we talked about it later on. And that became kind of the cornerstone of a relationship that was very, very interesting, very volatile at times, very sweet, invariably sweet at times, in which sometimes we couldn't stay away from each other, and sometimes we couldn't be together, and in which, you heaped all kinds of different, responsibilities on me and pushed me to the limit of surrender, introduced me to Srila Prabhupada after I had to figure out how to merge the accounts of the Radha Damodar party and the DBT book distribution party and make it somehow or other fit together so there could be some kind of fair kind of assessment of the competition and the results and all of that. Then there was Palm Day, then there was Srila Prabhupada's leaving and, assisting you and watching you serve Srila Prabhupada in I can't even say exemplary way, it was beyond words. It actually was beyond words. How you serve Srila Prabhupada, watching you serve Srila Prabhupada, watching Srila Prabhupada reciprocate with you, how much you loved him and how much he loved you, left indelible impression on my mind and embellished and deepened our relationship more and more. And then there was Bombay, of course, setting up the administrative accounts for Bombay from the very beginning in 1978. And then there was separation, there was Vyasa, there was Fiji Islands, there was all those reports, and then there was much later on after I ran away, there was reunion and reconciliation in such a way that I realized, what it meant to overcome any kind of obstacle in order to elevate a relationship and elevate a consciousness based on the reconciliation of relationship. And then it became so sweet. Again, beyond words. And then the last thing that I'd like to say is that due to a series of events that I can't go into details, I was very, very averse to managing anything in this movement for various reasons. But you and I think the Tachan Maharaj had something to do with this. He kind of made a suggestion. They got this building in Govardhan. I had been chanting the Govardhan Das Prata Dashika for 6.5 years, every single day, without it even dawning on me that one could live physically in Govardhan. In this life, I was always thinking, if I ever, in some lifetime. Anyway, that's how the spirit, I was chanting that prayer. And then you and Giriraj Maharaj did this wonderful thing of acquiring this property, which was practically impossible. You always did the impossible, always did the impossible. always 3, 4, 5, 10 years ahead of everyone else, living on the edge of controversy constantly as a result. One of the most misunderstood persons I've ever met in my life, one of the most misunderstood persons I've misunderstood in my life. Then, you decided on Nikonjan's advice that I would be the person to oversee the refurbishment of that Govardhan property. But I didn't want to do that. I was chanting 128 rounds in Vrindavan, and I was like, Babaji Venom. I was out of there. It took me 6 hours. Remember? 6 hours. And you're very expert, so I must have been really going the other direction. But your arguments were so good and so powerful, and your determination was so strong, I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no. So now by your grace, by your divine grace, I'm living in Govardhan and enjoying it like anything, and feeling tremendous separation from you, and especially because you were on your way there to spend more time, and I was looking forward very much to that. So in front of everyone, I would like to promise you as best I can, I've always kept my promises to you, that I will see to it that project is maintained, the building does not deteriorate, as most buildings do in India. I promise somehow or other I will do that. And I will continue to serve Gopi Prabhupada Prabhu, get these books and get them out so that the devotees can be enlivened, and as many of your desires as possible will be fulfilled. Hare Krishna.
Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki welcome Maharaj, welcome Dallas. So you can see I'm going to need some help here. Getting people to stay 6 minutes. So Balaram Prabhu, I'm going to ask you to come up in front as the timekeeper. Balaram Prabhu is our heavy man. Make sure everybody stays within their time. You have a bell. You have a bell right there.
He wants somebody offensive. So what I'll do is when it's 5 minutes, I'm gonna say, Arati, and then wrap it up for 1 minute so everyone can talk. Hare Krishna, and forgive me for my offenses in advance.
Actually, I think you made a very good suggestion there, Maharaj. I mean, if you don't mind, you could take that service on. It would be really great. I think everybody listens to you much more than listening to any of us. Okay, so you have a watch in your hand, and let it go as much as you'd like to let it go, but within certain don't.
Can we overrule, like if the crowd gets unruly because they want to hear more?
Yes. Very good. It's nice to have very intelligent people amongst us. Devotees, we have so much intelligence, sometimes we're over-intelligent. At times it's nice to have very intelligent people. It's okay. Now I'll ask if Mother Bhakti is here. Mother Bhakti, you're here? You'll be speaking after that. Kishore Maharaj will be next after that. Just to let you know. It'll be great. Jai Mother Bhakti Prabhu ki Jai.
I'd like to actually share a story that took place between myself and Gurudev on the way to the American Academy of Religion several years back. But before doing that, I want to preface back to July 4th, 1972, on the day that I met Srila Prabhupada for the first time. My husband, of course, as everyone knows, met Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur in 1972 at the first Mayapur festival. That's where Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers took place. And when he came home, he took me to the temple on Henry Street in Brooklyn. And I, being the non-hippie type, straight-laced, I found it a pretty wild place, the Hare Krishna Center. And on July the 4th, I finally, not having ever chanted Hare Krishna, no one would ever get me to chant Hare Krishna. They would say, Hare Krishna Bhakti and so, and I would think, hi. So when someone arranged that we meet Srila Prabhupada, that I got to meet Srila Prabhupada, the devotee said, when you go in to meet Srila Prabhupada, make sure you offer your obeisances. I said, like, right, I'm going to bow down to someone? I don't think so. It's not the way I was raised. So when I got in to meet Srila Prabhupada, he was very kind, and we spent quite a long time in there, and Prabhupada was very sweet. And so many things happened, but just to make a very long story short, at the end, when it came time for Prabhupada to leave and my husband was going to be driving into the airport, I turned to Prabhupada and I folded my hands and I said, Hare Krishna. And without a moment's hesitation, Prabhupada said, Jai. And I knew in my heart that Prabhupada knew that that was the first time I had said Hare Krishna. Okay, now let's go back up to 3 or 4 years ago. We're speeding up time. I'm in a car with Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami, my husband, myself. Who else was with us? We're in the car, and I was going through somewhat of an existential crisis in my academic career. And Gurudev, being an academician as well, understood how difficult it was. And I said to him, you know, I entered the academic world one person, and now I'm a completely different person. And that was a really hard thing to explain to people, how I changed. And without a moment's hesitation, he said, I know exactly what you mean. And in that same way that I felt Srila Prabhupada understood me, I felt Srila Gurudev also understood me. And that from that point forward, he was truly my mentor, my big brother. And he is sorely missed. And I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to come and tell you the story. And please help me to fulfill my agreement with Srila Gurudev that I finish successfully my academic work so that I can go on to fulfill Prabhupada's mission. Yeah.
Bhakti Prabhu, please. Is not the Kodashami here? Are the Kodashami Prabhu? Are you here? Okay. Well, I'll ask Bhakti Charu Maharaj to speak next time. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. After that, Guru Prasad Maharaj might be ready to speak. I've also got one announcement. If any of you are parked out in the front, our restaurant customers cannot park there, and what will happen is Durashe will give me a bill. The last time he gave me a bill was $700, and it caused a lot of consternation between us. I had to pay that bill because he stood by his bill. For this festival, I'd rather not have a bill like that. So please, can you help us? If you're parked out in the front, come and park at the back so the restaurant customers can park there and have their shop in the restaurant. Thank you.
While flying from New York to Dallas, I just wrote my offering to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Originally, I thought that I thought, I am printing one magazine called The Spiritual Connection, and
memory of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. It will be arriving, it was supposed to arrive yesterday from London, but somehow it didn't make it. Then I thought I will speak extempore, but then while flying, I just wrote this. Just read it out, and since I'm short, I think it's better to keep my presentation precise.
This one. Unplug it.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravan Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschattam. I don't want to speak about how much I miss him, nor do I want to eloquently express his greatness. There are plenty of testimonies of what he was and how much he has achieved. I feel that it is important that I myself recognize how much he meant to me and how wonderfully he helped me in my spiritual life. To express my gratitude to him for all that he has done for me, eulogy is not enough. What I really need to do is meditate on him, absorb my mind in his personality. Therefore, I decided to print a magazine to keep the record how deep an impression he left on the hearts of so many. A true spiritual connection, a connection that links one with the spiritual reality. For me, he was my most important connection to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. I want to make a movie on his life and achievements, show the world a real hero that they will feel proud to follow. The greatness of a great personality can be perceived from his very early years. I'm sure many will want to know what he did as a young boy and how he affected the lives of those around him. Whatever I gathered so far is extremely profound and exciting. I know many recollections of wonderful anecdotes will pour in as I prepare to write the script. Krishna Consciousness is going to spread throughout the world in every town and village. In order to make it happen, first we have to motivate people. Movie or audiovisual media is the way to move the mass and motivate the millions. Philosophy does not sink deep in the minds of the most. Music used to. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the Sankirtan movement. In those days, people used to think that Sankirtan meant just the congregational chanting of the holy name, singing the glories of the Lord. But Srila Prabhupada gave it a different connotation. Use everything to spread the glory of Krishna. Modern men lost the final faculties of even appreciating music. They have become so gross that unless they see, they cannot comprehend. Therefore, we have to force open their eyes and compel them to see. His life will indeed be a great theme for a movie.
19, because I was on that group, I was asked to leave Mexico in 1984, and because of all the circumstances, things were happening, I decided that I would probably just become an independent sannyasi. That was the best course of action. I really didn't want to join any other group of devotees, or I was just thinking I'll try to distribute books and work with whoever agrees more or less with what the direction that we're trying to go in. And so out of the blue, Goswami Maharaj called me. I really had no substantial association. So, I got the message that Tamal Krishna Goswami is calling me. I was thinking, why is he calling me? Of all. So and he was very kind. He said, "Oh, I hear you're a little disappointed with the way things are going." And I said, "Yeah. So why don't you come up to Dallas and we can talk about it?" I thought, he's the antithesis of what, he's like one of the acharyas. This will never work. I said, well, Maharaj, with all due respect, I really feel that there has to be some changes. I'm not so sure that we can agree on these things. He said, I also agree there has to be some change. Why don't you come up and talk about it? So I came up and I was really all the way up there. I drove up all those 8 or 9 hours of driving. I was like, this is going to be the biggest challenge in my life. He represented the total antithesis. But then we sat and talked, and there was a couple other God brothers there. And he said, I felt for a long time, just like Kesha Bhagavati Prabhu was saying, that he was always ahead. He was ahead, always like, although you may not see it, he was always ahead of everybody else. And I could see he actually had a whole plan mapped out for changes. I was amazed. So I said, well, I'm going to stay here in Dallas. So I stayed here. And I was, then I did get a little taste of his heavy side. But actually he was always very kind to me. As I told the devotees the other day, he probably realized that I was envious, so he just decided to be kind, because he was very perceptive. So he was, but he treated me very nicely, and and we really got to know each other pretty well, and I got a chance to meet all of the nice devotees here. And over the years, and of course, I went back to Latin America after some changes came about, and I went back. And after some time, I didn't have much association. That was 1986, up to a few years ago. But actually, one of the greatest testimonies to his greatness was the fact that, I would come here to Houston and Dallas quite a bit, and the years that I was here in Dallas, and just meeting his disciples, all over the world, because his disciples were everywhere. I thought that one of the greatest testimonies to his greatness was the fact that all of his disciples are so nice, all of his disciples are so well trained, all of his disciples are so courteous. So whether anyone knew him or didn't know him, or whether anyone in the future generations, new people that are coming, know him or had a chance to meet him personally, just by associating with his disciples and those who associated with him, many of us benefited so much from what he had to teach, what he had to do. I just want to mention one more thing, just very quickly, that one of his famous works in the last few years was The Final Days, about Srila Prabhupada. And of course we call that film about Srila Prabhupada The Final Lesson. And I consider that even his leaving was a final lesson in so many ways for all of us. Because Krishna chooses through his devotees to teach us so many things. And one thing he definitely taught was that Goswami Maharaj was always so absorbed in devotional service, and it didn't matter what he was doing, whether it was academics, he always went to the forefront and at the same time maintained perfect Krishna consciousness. And I could see that in those days in Mayapur just before he unfortunately left our company, left us alone without such a great general. You know, there are many wonderful devotees, but there are very few great generals. So, to me, his departure was also a great lesson and a final lesson. That I told you that is someone we have to be prepared at any moment. And he was so Krishna conscious because I spoke with the devotee who was with him, you know, that same day when we left. And he was telling me how just the last thing that he heard when the whole accident happened was just he was chanting the holy name. Because that was, to me, that was an important detail. So to me, that was a very great final lesson. He was chanting Krishna. And then, of course, the very unfortunate event happened. But of course, from Krishna's point of view, everything has its purpose. So I thought that was very wonderful, how he remained so Krishna conscious. And even in those moments, because anyone who's had an accident or anyone who's been involved in something that, you know, it's not easy to remember Krishna. I've been in a few accidents, a few life-threatening situations, and it's not easy to remember Krishna. So that to me is a very great final lesson. So with all due respect to Sridhar Maharaj, before he comes up and strangles me.
Now, as I've understood it, today is Vyasa Puja, and tomorrow is the foundation stone for the Pushpa Samadhi. Plus, there's a lot of opportunity in the evening to speak. I mean, we've got at least 2, if not 3 days for everybody to speak and speak and speak. But at the Vyasa Puja, you know, it's like this all over the world. You know, 5 people get to speak and nobody else does. Let's keep it 6 minutes, because I've got lots to say. It's not that I have this lacuna in my mind what to say about Goswami Maharaj, but little deference to the others, please.
His Holiness Guru Prasad Maharaj ki jai. His Holiness Sridhar Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Prabhu, are you here? You're the next speaker. She no? Not in the room. Okay. Brother Shami Prabhu is here. Okay, Mother Brother Shami Prabhu, can you please come and speak? Yes. And after that, we have Rita Puja Maharaj. And after Rita Puja Maharaj, we'll be having a bhajan. 5-minute bhajan kirtan, 5-10 minutes. Would you mind reading it, Dr. Sharma? 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Right.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Glories to Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami. I also have Niranjana Swami's Vyasa Puja offering. Should I read that first?
You get 12.
I'm very concerned. So this is short. Dear Tamal Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I've never written a Vyasa Puja offering to you before, and I'm asking myself, is the only reason why I'm writing this offering to you today because you recently departed from our association? Externally, it may seem that way, both to myself and to those who will hear this offering. But after looking deep within my heart, I've realized that this is not the only reason why I'm writing. I'm writing because I've come to realize just how dear to me you were when you were still physically present. Otherwise, why am I feeling so much pain now that you've departed? Had you not been so dear, I would not be suffering as much as I am today, by knowing that I can no longer have your association. At least not while I'm still in this body. So it is not only just because you are departed that I'm writing, but it's also because you are still here in my memory. Physically, you may have departed, but you have implanted an indelible memory of your association which will always stay with me, and I would like to thank you for that. I must also confess to you now There's another reason why I am suffering. You were so kind to me during those wonderful days we were in Mayapur this year, having kirtans every evening in your home. You were pouring your kindness upon me for a reason which I could not at all ascertain. I was especially moved by how often you would express your gratitude to me for coming and chanting in your room. You repeatedly said that you had become a great debtor to me and you did not know if you would ever be able to find the means to pay back that debt. Although I countered your claims, you would insist that there were no words which you could use to express your gratitude. In retrospect, I am the one who is the debtor, because after a long lapse from your association, you had kindly given me an opportunity to render some service that was pleasing to you. Nonetheless, I'm suffering because on the very last night before your departure, you came into the temple during kirtans and apologized that you would not be able to stay for the kirtans that evening. And one by one, you approached your godbrothers to thank them and say goodbye, in case you would not see us again before leaving early the following morning. I clearly remember how you approached some and embraced them, and when you came to me, you partially extended your arms as if you wanted to embrace. But at the same time, your look was as one who did not want to impose. The fool that I am, I did not reciprocate, and I continued to sit just with folded hands, thanking you for your wonderful association and kindness. I did not accept your loving embrace, something I now realize that you so much wanted to offer to this ungrateful wretch. I am suffering, so much suffering that I often cry, thinking that I no longer have the opportunity to accept this embrace from you. Please forgive me for not adequately accepting your kindness, but at least I've come to learn why you are being so kind to me. This realization came to me last week while I was listening to your matchless memories of Srila Prabhupada. Each day I would listen for about 30 minutes, and I was relishing so much the memories you were sharing of your association with Srila Prabhupada. In the third tape, you began describing your memories of Srila Prabhupada's last days with his disciples, and with great detail you began to describe how during that time Srila Prabhupada made himself so accessible to everyone, more accessible than he had ever made himself before. You described it as some kind of unfathomable kindness to deepen the disciples' attachment to their spiritual master, to give them the strength to go on after his departure. After some thought, I realized that this is what you were doing with me in Mayapur this year. Although your kindness upon me was then, for some unknown reason, Krishna inspired you to pour so much kindness upon me, further deepen my attachment both to you and to Srila Prabhupada, for giving us the association of wonderful godbrothers like you. So, although you claim yourself as my debtor, it is perfectly clear to me now you have made me into your eternal debtor, Vyasa Swami. So the last time that I had the blessing and opportunity to have the association of Goswami Maharaj was in Mayapur, and I was so thankful that I was able to be there, because every night we had these beautiful bhajans. And I was amazed how when you walk in the room, how Goswami Maharaj would just create this incredible mood of just family and love and devotion. And you walk in the room would be filled with frankincense, just filled with frankincense. The beautiful harmonium and the mridangas and the kartals were in the center. And there was no lecture or anything. You just look at everybody with so much love that he had for all of us, no matter who anyone was, new people, godbrothers, godsisters, disciples, well-wishers. And we all just sat there for hours and just orchestrated this beautiful bhajan kutir. It was just amazing. So I also got to talk to him a few times. And I'm just always amazed at how personal he was. I think it was his legacies. Of course, he's like a flower, like a blossom. And every flower, like Sri Swami was saying, we could talk about so many of the petals on that flower, so many petals. But one legacy that he does leave, I think, to this movement and to all of us is the personalism. That he was the most personal godbrother I had, because he just really didn't matter where you were coming from, where you were at, what you were going through. You know, he understood and accepted you for who you were. When you walked away from him, you were able to completely feel like you could advance in your spiritual life. You felt so light and you felt so joyful. You felt like you wanted to continue your service to Srila Prabhupada. So that quality of deep personalism that he had and showed to all of us, I'm going to try to really meditate on that and try to follow that example. So that was just one quality. And of course I cooked for him here in Dallas for many years. And he taught me how to cook, how to set the plate up, how to cook Vedically, and as Guru Prasad told me, saying it was, you know, he could be quite intricate and complex about how he wanted things done. But I always realized that he was just wanting perfection for Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. He always wanted to represent in our culture that devotees were quality people, personal people, and we had a very profound and deep culture. And I always wished we had plans to preach together, and I'm sure we will in the future. I'm sure we'll all together we will in the future. So it's a great, great general of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya's name. So, I just walked in.
That was good coming up here. Niranjana Swami ki. So now I'll ask Uttara Maharaj to come and speak. And after that, we'll have bhajan. After that, from Tirtha Prabhu, we had somebody who would read. Purijan Prabhu, that's right. And also, we have the reading from Sri Krishna Maharaj as well, so it's Sri Krishna Maharaj. I think you might speak first. Thank you.
I suggest that people out here should speak. Reading tonight.
Okay.
I'm a speaker.
Jai His Holiness Srita Thaja Maharaj ki jai.
Synchronized watches. I know Sridhar Swami because this doesn't come from my time. You see, orchestrates the New York Rath Yatra takedown, and he can be a tough guy. He strikes fear into the heart of all. Anyway, I am very happy to be here. I almost didn't get to come because even though I'm a sannyasi, I have 30 children to take care of. And,
Don't tell us about that, Mark.
Yeah, technically not mine. But somehow or another they've come to my care. Anyway, I was able to escape. So anyway, I'm happy to be here because I don't write so well. And when I'm in off front, I don't speak so well either, but at least it's okay. Huh? So I was always thinking I just like to write something down and just talk about it or something like that. I can't do it, you know. And I was thinking, well, when you speak, it's going to be very emotional today because somehow or another I haven't really got over it yet, you know. Sorry. When you do a lot of service for somebody, you get passionate. Anyway, I came here and I got a chance to give some service to this time. I'll just never forget it.
Yeah. His Holiness Srita Thaja Maharaj ki jai. Sri Maharaj is lead the bhajan now. So, 5-10 minutes I think. We need a kirtan. People come up here, right? Yeah.
Come here.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavati Vastatari Sutari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Jaya Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Jaya Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. His Divine Grace Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj's Vyasa Puja celebration ki. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj's Divine Appearance Day celebration ki. Gaur Premanande.
Now I'll ask His Grace Nitai Prabhu to speak. And then after Nitai Prabhu speaks, we can have Pramatita Prabhu come over. And you can speak on your own behalf, Prabhu. Pramatita Prabhu. So yeah, I know. What's happening is that both Giri Kari Maharaj and Giriraj Swami asked if they could speak in the end, so I've taken them right to the end of the program. And they will be speaking, but they requested that they be allowed to speak in the end. So,
If the only additional person who wrote something for someone to read with Gurujan Prabhu?
Yes, there's also Vir Krishna Maharaj, two people.
They're not that long.
Yeah. Okay, we can do it probably later on in the program, but those who are here may be given first preference. Then. Is that okay? Bhaktivedanta Prabhu can speak on his behalf as well. Thank you.
6 minutes means 6 senses be alert. You know, when Goswami Maharaj came, anywhere, everybody's alert. So today he appeared. So you have 6 minutes to be alert with 6 senses. Vancha kalpatarvascha kripa sindhu bhayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I don't know which way to relate. Today is his most auspicious appearance day, but the memory brings great lamentation in the heart. Why we lament for the separation of great Vaishnava? Sanatana Goswami explains, these Vaishnavas are not ordinary person. It's mentioned in Bhagavatamrita that the Vaishnavas, they always drink the nectar of Bhagavatam. Krishna Bhakti Shuddhapana Dehaika Vismitai. That their body is always drinking the nectar of devotional service. Krishna Bhakti Shuddhapana. That pure devotee, the Vaishnava, nourishment, comes from devotional service. And that devotional service is to follow the order of his spiritual master. Just like in Bhagavad Gita we read, Sri Chaitanya Manoavishtam, and here is Guru Manoavishtam. Tamal Krishna Maharaj showed the path of Guru Manoavishtam. He was always fixed in devotional service to please Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Bhakti Shuddhapana Deha. Therefore, his body is transcendental. Shuddhapana Deha, Dehika Vismitai. Then that body is no longer a material body, it is transcendental body. Sanatana Goswami further explains, Tesham Bhautika Dehana. Although he has appeared in this material world, in the material body, Deha Api Shachidananda Rupata, that material body now has transformed to Satchit and Ananda. Eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. Shachidananda Rupata. Chaitanya Charitamrita it explains, Vaishnavya Deha Prakita Pabhuna. The body of a Vaishnava is not a material body, it is a transcendental body. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it further explains why a spiritual master comes in this material world, accepting this material body. Who is that personality that we are trying to estimate today? Jive nistar lagi nandashita hari bhuvane prakasham Sri Guru Rupada Hari. This spiritual master is not an ordinary person. He has come under the direction of Krishna for the salvation, deliverance of all human beings. Jive nistar lagi Nanda Shuta Hari, the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna, it's not an ordinary person. Nanda Shuta Hari, Bhuvane Prakash, he appears in this material world. Shri Guru Rupdhari, he appears as a spiritual master. Therefore, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explained, Shakshad Haritena Shamastra Shastri. That Guru is as good as Lord. Because sometimes ordinary sentimentalists will misinterpret, he is Krishna, we do not require Krishna. We only worship him. Therefore, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gave that point, as good as Krishna. But in reality, he is accepting service from us to bring it to Krishna. And we know that Guru is not an ordinary person, therefore we worship him. We celebrate his appearance day. We celebrate his disappearance day. If that person leaves, whichever path he takes to leave, it is inconceivable. It is immaterial how he lives this material world. Because it cannot be estimated by our material teeny brain, although one may be highly educated with all material phenomena. One can say that I have heard this when I was coming to America, that someone is spreading some rumor saying where he passed away, he has gone to some place which is despicable. But it is not true. Krishna, he left his body certain way. Mother Shita took the path. Lord Shiva's wife Parvati, she decided to leave her body certain way. It is up to Krishna. It cannot be comprehended by our material teeny brain, or even so much we have understanding of a person. We don't realize how important it was to us, His Divine Grace Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. We realized only to a certain degree, I would say. Many of us, we have our understanding about Maharaj in the past certain way, but we have realized more when physically he left us, how much he was carrying us in a spiritual life. This person, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, everyone says, yes, bell is ringing, I must go. I'll give you one incident of Maharaj. He came to Radhakund, he was looking for me. And he entered this Dharmashala and he saw there was a master law. You know, normally Dharmashala doesn't have master law. So he said, I thought it must be your room. Because when I went for Giriraj Parikrama, I came to learn from the Dharmashala caretaker that some Swamijis had come were looking for you. So I went to see him in Vrindavan temple, Abhiram Prabhu's house, he was residing. He said, Nitai, I knew that's your room, room number 5. It has a master lock, it must be you. I said, you are right. He said, I want you to move in with me here. So when I do Kartik, I stay here, you stay with me. But no fasting. And Maharaj just got this new boy as cook, Gopal Raj. And every day, lunchtime, he would have me taste all the food first. And he said, Nita, you tell me, does it taste good? And one time, he cooked sweet rice. And he put those camphor, you know, the chemical camphor you offer. And I tasted, I said, Maharaj, it has a camphor, and that's chemical, you shouldn't eat. He said, Gopal Raj, why you put that chemical camphor? See, Maharaj had so much attachment for his devotees. Actually, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, here he comes. disciple here actually represent Tamal Krishna Maharaj more than he is physically here with us. Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki
Srila Prabhupada Goswami Maharaj. I'll speak briefly, or else. And this will be, I want to present something maybe a little less than appropriate, and certainly not a way that I would ever normally speak. But I received a story from Bhaktivedanta, very brief, so I'll read it because it fits in with a story I have, and with Sri Swami's permission. 10, I'll be late. And it's a little bit mystical. I've had very few mystical events in my life. One of them was actually with Prabhupada, did a little mystical thing with me one time. It's another story. But now this story here is, I'll read from Bhaktivedanta and then I'll tell my story and a little comment. Not much to this story, but I think it's actually very significant because I think a lot of us can relate to this story. He begins, I feel dumb relating this to anyone. He just wrote this to me as we know. Even the devotees in Texas, even though it is what I wanted to say to them, it sounds trivial. I mean, as New Yorkers are fond of saying, big deal. In any case, how could you have realized, in my life as a devotee, I've had a few sort of psychic, predictive experiences. One of them took place in 1970 while I was in Tokyo. Srila Prabhupada was there with an entourage of sannyasis and householders, TKG, and a householder TKG on their way to Calcutta for Prabhupada's first real preaching tour. At that point, I was a brahmachari, and TKG was Prabhupada's most trusted secretary. At some point during the stay, I had the realization that TKG and I would one day become the closest of friends. At that point, nothing could have seemed more unlikely. During that visit, and also once in Gita Nagari in the late 1970s, I considered mentioning it to him, but thought, nah. Because Bhaktivedanta was just an insignificant devotee then preaching there. Goswami was very significant. We actually started relating while I was in Vrindavan in 1985. Then again in 90 to 96 we were close. And then after we went to Cambridge, we would speak on the phone often about life, his PhD, this and that, every month, every day, sometimes every day. And we became closer as he really began to become a soft, realistic human being, which may be a prerequisite for becoming a pure devotee. I felt that he really knew me, and I really knew him. He called so often that it seemed he was a member of our family. Sometimes we'd get confused about who was who and would offer Jai Gurupad, his son, humble obeisances. I was constantly looking forward to being his close friend for life and seeing how his life and our friendship would develop. He telephoned needing some consolation a few days before he left for India, and I offered whatever advice I could. After he sent me a short email and replied, "Thank you for your counsel." And that was it. It seemed peculiar that somehow that little message summed up a lot of our relationship. And Krishna arranged a final gesture for him to me. Thank you for having shared such open-hearted dealings with a lot of teasing and joking and affection over the years. And that's what I wish to tell the devotees from Dallas. Whether or will or not, I don't know. And then he said, go ahead. I said it was a nice story. And then I'll tell a brief story and just a little comment. In 1978 or 9, Goswami became the GBC where we were when I was in Houston. And all the devotees, Sankarshanji was there then, I believe, all the devotees had a choice when Radha Damodar took over Houston. You could either all split to Florida, which is the way the zones were, or stay there. And somehow everybody split. It's mostly Grahasta temple. I can't imagine why. But Goswami asked me to stay, to help, because I was like mentorship director, and I was very glad to do that. And we started developing just a relationship Some people considered him very, sometimes a little rough. I say it was a rough embrace, just like we pray in the Shastakika. It was that rough embrace, because he had so much affection. That roughness, he was totally straightforward and honest, and that came out in roughness. Then we had our mystical story though. He came, I don't even remember the story very well, and it's not very important. We were playing this big festival, huge festival. It was April '79. We had the whole players came. They'd just come from Panama performing for the president. This was the Ramayan. And this is Nanda Kishore, the whole group, and they're about to perform. We planned this big festival. But somehow something went wrong. It's not even important what. And Goswami was angry. And that's putting it mildly. He was so angry that he was, done something. It was really stupid what we did. Frankly, I don't remember what it was, but it was one of these monumentally stupid things we'd done. And he was pretty upset. And then all of a sudden, and we had not planned the festival right, all of a sudden, the rain started coming. And we didn't, it was outdoors, right next to Rosalie Street. And then a breaker blew. We had the whole play going on. It was a 220-volt breaker on a Saturday night, and you can't get another one in the city of Houston. So we had no power. The rain was about to come, and the prasadam thing was all screwed up. And a few of us went into Goswami's room, and we said to him, Goswami, you know you're right, we really screwed up, we'll just do the best we can. And he gave a big smile and said something like, well, that's okay. We walked outside, the clouds had disappeared, the power came on, and she said, no idea how that could have happened. If we had an electrician show up, said there was no part in Houston you can get on Saturday night, it's impossible. The prasadam showed up, and the program was a grand success. A very mystical event. So I haven't heard a bell, I'll still go on for just another moment. Goswami was very competitive, as we know. And he said to me in February of this year, I just thought I'd pass this on, we were talking about some folks, and he said, you know, when you get past 50, you get less competitive. And I was tempted to say to him, less competitive than what? Out of respect, I didn't say that to him. And of course, he won the competition, getting the first samadhi, and I wish he hadn't won that one. I didn't want him to get that competition. It was too painful. But he used to, when he would get his awards at school, and a wall is over here. Sometimes he would send a note, I got another one. And then my wife was getting all these awards. She sent him a note, fax him. I got another one. So they're faxing these awards back and forth. And it was such, all these sweet money exchanges. There are thousands, and I want to leave time for everyone else to go on. And my final comment, though, is a very important one. And I think Nitai Chand had just mentioned this. Whenever I go to one of the temples at Goswami's, let's say Houston or Dallas, for example, one thing I notice, just like sitting at breakfast this morning as an example, you know you're at Goswami's temple. Everyone in the movement knows where you're at. Things are done right. Prasadam is served out nicely. The mood among the devotees is nice. People are concerned about you as a person. They want to know how you are. Are you comfortable? Are you well? It is definitely, you visit a Goswami temple, his touch is there. And it leaves the heart a little bit from his leaving us. Thank you very much.
This is both difficult and easy to be the first disciple to speak. So I think I'm fortunate because I can get away with certain things. I just want to review a few highlights that are indicative of Goswami Maharaj's being a special Vaishnava and dear to everyone in Prabhupada. We're on the same. So one is that when we first came here in the early 80s, my wife and I moved here, he took advantage of some material skill that I had, and we arranged 30 days straight of preaching engagements. Some of you may know, he even had devotees make a button which said, "Keep me preaching." And every day it was a Lions Club, a Rotary Club, meeting with the bishop, the Catholic bishop of this area, the diocese, and it just went on and on. And as the relationship, I think it was about 17 years before some of my fuses started going out, which was a few years ago, and I kept trying to retire, and thanks to Krishna Nityananda Prabhu agreed, and I got to retire a little bit. And the relationship, as we all know, it changes, even with the spiritual master. It's not like a new disciple, it becomes more confidential in certain ways and very close and very sweet at times. And he really wasn't very heavy with me, particularly. I saw that side of it. Even after 17 years, one time he called me in and he said, "You know, you're the most competent sounding, incompetent person I've ever met." So it took 17 years to get to that level. I want to address the hard thing is you lose track of where you start. And you get older, you can't. What I gained from being here. I gained asthma and I lost most of my hair. Those are two factual things physically. On a spiritual level, there are some things that I think all of the God brothers should hear from the disciples. And that is that cumulatively and individually, we see our spiritual master in you, in each of you. When we look in your eyes and your heart comes through your eyes, we see our Guru Maharaj. And he dedicated himself to see, as we know, every minute of every day, he acted like that, or tried to be like that on behalf of Prabhupada. To all of us, I think, speaking for his younger godbrothers and godsisters, what to speak of for his disciples. And for the disciples, could we just have a show of hands how many came from outside Dallas? And then keep your hands up if you came from outside the United States. So hands up if you're out from outside the United States. Devotees came from Italy and Holland and Hong Kong, and you can relax now, and Singapore. Once again, you came a long time ago, and India. It was, for me personally, I think everyone's different, and you can't say that one is better than another or more advanced, just we're all different. For example, I've had many dreams, but I believe about our Gurudev, but I believe that all of us are dreaming every single night, but I maybe have more disrupted sleep patterns. So I woke up. I had a dream for 2 days in a row that, number one, he came to the Vyasa Puja ceremony. Haribol! 2 days ago, and then he was here, and it was and we were a group of us in the room. In my dreams, I always end up sobbing. Funny how words trigger things. And then the next day, we were all sitting, if I may, Guru Prasad. I heard that Guru Prasad Maharaj was coming in. I feel the closest in from the 80s when we first started coming to Houston, when we moved there. And we were all sitting at the feast around the table. And Goswami Maharaj was at the head, and Guru Prasad Maharaj was at his right, and I was to his left. And Guru Prasad Maharaj kind of pulled me over. And somehow or other he started sobbing on my shoulder because of the feelings. And Goswami was very, very present the whole time, and we feel his presence. And the final thing that I'd like to share is that, at least for me, when I look in, particularly the younger disciples, there are some disciples who just don't feel like they have a connection. And for me, what I've been able to express, and Nitai Chanmar said it best, I think, he told me, just be patient, because I've had a hard time even coming in the temple. Last night was the first time I heard Tamal Krishna Goswami's voice since March 14th, because I couldn't. do that. And he said, just be patient and you allow the inner heart to come through. The inner heart. As simple as that sounds. And there are devotees here that during the day today, during the day tomorrow, just take a moment. And if it's someone you don't know, if you're sitting near someone, these are family members. Whether initiated or not, there's no difference. There's Bhakti Natasha, where are you? She's there. She's from Holland. And she was waiting to take initiation for close to 5 years, really. 3 to 5 years. And you can see there's something missing. There are 100 devotees around the world, but we know that if someone accepts Diksha in the heart, there's no difference. If anything, Shisha within the heart, if anything, accepting someone within the heart is more important than the formal ceremony. So if we could just make the effort to introduce ourselves to other devotees who have come, and look in their eyes. This is my small realization. Look in their eyes. And when you look in their eyes, you will see, particularly straight through to the heart, and you will see Srila Gurudev, because he is there. So just look in the eyes. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Gurudev.